Op-ed. Richard Spencer. I was fired as Navy Secretary. Here's what I've learned because of it. By Richard Spencer, November 27, 2019. Richard Spencer is the former Secretary of the Navy. The case of Chief Petty Officer Edward Gallagher, a Navy SEAL who was charged with multiple war crimes before being convicted of a single lesser charge earlier this year, was troubling enough before things became even more troubling over the past few weeks. The trail of events that led to me being fired as Secretary of the Navy is marked with lessons for me and for the nation. It is highly irregular for a secretary to become deeply involved in most personnel matters. Normally, military justice works best when senior leadership stays far away. A system that prevents command influence is what separates our armed forces from others. Our system of military justice has helped build the world's most powerful navy. Good leaders get promoted, bad ones get moved out, and criminals are punished. In combat zones, the stakes are even higher. We train our forces to be both disciplined and lethal. We strive to use proportional force, protect civilians, and treat detainees fairly. Ethical conduct is what sets our military apart. I have believed that every day since joining the Marine Corps in 1976. We are effective overseas not because we have the best equipment, but because we are professionals. Our troops are held to the highest standards. We expect those who lead our forces to exercise excellent judgment. The soldiers and sailors they lead must be able to count on that. Earlier this year, Gallagher was formally charged with more than a dozen criminal acts, including premeditated murder, which occurred during his 8th deployment overseas. He was tried in a military court in San Diego and acquitted in July of all charges except one count of wrongfully posing for photographs with the body of a dead Islamic State fighter. The jury sentenced him to 4 months, the maximum possible. Because he had served that amount of time waiting for trial, he was released. President Trump involved himself in the case almost from the start. Before the trial began, in March, I received 2 calls from the president asking me to lift Gallagher's confinement in a Navy brig. I pushed back twice because the presiding judge, acting on information about the accused's conduct, had decided that confinement was important. Eventually, the president ordered me to have him transferred to the equivalent of an enlisted barracks. I came to believe that Trump's interest in the case stemmed partly from the way the defendant's lawyers and others had worked to keep it front and center in the media. After the verdict was delivered, the Navy's normal process wasn't finished. Gallagher had voluntarily submitted his request to retire. In his case, there were 3 questions. Would he be permitted to retire at the rank of chief, which is also known as an E7? The jury had said that he should be busted to an E6, a demotion. The second was, should he be allowed to leave the service with an honorable or general under honorable discharge? And a third, should he be able to keep his trident pin, the medal all SEALs wear and treasure as members of an elite force? On November 14, partly because the president had already contacted me twice, I sent him a note asking him not to get involved in these questions. The next day, White House counsel Pat Cipollone called me and said the president would remain involved. Shortly thereafter, I received a second call from Cipollone, who said the president would order me to restore Gallagher to the rank of chief. This was a shocking and unprecedented intervention in a low-level review. It was also a reminder that the president has very little understanding of what it means to be in the military, to fight ethically, or to be governed by a uniform set of rules and practices. Given my desire to resolve a festering issue, I tried to find a way that would prevent the President from further involvement while trying all avenues to get Gallagher's file in front of a peer review board. Why? The Naval Special Warfare community owns the Trident pin, not the Secretary of the Navy, not the Defense Secretary, not even the President. If the review board concluded that Gallagher deserved to keep it, so be it. I also began to work without personally consulting Defense Secretary Mark T. Esper on every step. That was, I see in retrospect, a mistake for which I am solely responsible. On November 19, I briefed Esper's Chief of Staff concerning my plan. I briefed Acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney that evening. The next day, the Navy established a review board to decide the status of Gallagher's Trident pin. According to long-standing procedure, a group of 4 senior enlisted SEALs would rule on the question. This was critical. It would be Gallagher's peers managing their own community. The senior enlisted ranks in our services are the foundation of good order and discipline. But the question was quickly made moot. On November 21, the President tweeted that Gallagher would be allowed to keep his pin, Trump's third intervention in the case. I recognized that the tweet revealed the President's intent, but I did not believe it to be an official order, chiefly because every action taken by the President in the case so far had either been a verbal or written command. The rest is history. We must now move on and learn from what has transpired. The public should know that we have extensive screening procedures in place to assess the health and well-being of our forces. But we must keep fine-tuning those procedures to prevent a case such as this one from happening again. More importantly, Americans need to know that 99.9% of our uniformed members always have, always are, and always will make the right decision. Our allies need to know that we remain a force for good, and to please bear with us as we move through this moment in time.